And wildfires are also burning in Manitoba, where more than 1,300 people in several communities have been forced to leave. Hilary Johnstone is watching this developing story for us. So Hilary, there's word from the federal government that help is on the way.
That's right, there is. So 120 members from the Canadian Armed Forces are going to be making their way to Manitoba. So Public Safety Minister Bill Blair, he confirmed that earlier today that the federal government was going to grant a request from the provincial government to send some help. So that is the situation right there. Of course, we know that large sections of the boreal forest and parts of eastern and central Manitoba have been burning. So those images that you're looking at right now, that's from near Bloodvein First Nation. And late last night, the Red Cross said that Bloodvein First Nation, that there were efforts being made to evacuate as many people from that community as could possibly be done. You can see just how close the fire is coming to the road, for example. So in the process of fully evacuating that community. Now, there's another First Nations community, Barons River, and it's about 70 kilometers to the north of Bloodvein. And they've been making efforts to get people out of that community, anyone who has any sort of health problems, because as you can see from just how thick that smoke is, that is not the sort of place that you want to be right now. Anyone who has any sort of breathing difficulties or health problems. So really making an effort to get them out. There's already been 1,300 people forced to flee from their homes. A lot of them have been taken to hotels like the one you're seeing here. So this is in Winnipeg. This is Quest Inn. Other people have been taken to Brandon, Manitoba, to hotels there as well. And the Red Cross has said that they are anticipating that as many as 1,600 people are going to need shelter in the coming days because they've been forced to flee their homes. And earlier today, we spoke with some people, some evacuees outside of this hotel. Let's listen to what they said.
There's fire on both sides, so the buses are coming out, which was, for me, I thought was very dangerous. There's kids, there's elders, and there's afflicted people inside the bus, and then they have to drive right through the fire. They should have had some kind of like a Hercules plane land and pick up people from there, take them out of there. And I think that would have been a lot safer.
Well, seeing that fire, it was like a shock. Seeing it in real life, scary. And kind of want to go home, but you can't.
So hearing there, those people who want to go home, which of course you can definitely sympathize with. And we know that some of those people who have been taken to other communities already, in some cases they were actually flown out of their communities because remember, a lot of these communities, especially these ones that are east of Lake Winnipeg, they are quite remote. In some cases they are fly-in only or can only be accessed via road in the winter. So it's been quite a challenge to get some of these people to safety in the southern part of the province.
And that's just one of the challenges because there's also major concerns about the power lines in some of those remote communities. So what can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. And just a short time ago, we did hear that power had been cut to at least 7 First Nations communities, including Bloodvein and also Barons River. So because these communities are so remote, there's not a lot of infrastructure out there. And what we've been hearing is that one of the power lines has been damaged, and they believe that is because of the wildfire. And of course, that is now going to impact quite a few communities. Now, even though most people have been taken out, have been flown out, there are still some people who remain. There's at least 100 people who are still in Little Grand Rapids there keeping an eye on the community. And earlier we heard from a Little Grand Rapids councillor who talked about the importance of those power lines.
If that line gets cut out, then a lot of people's freezers and food that is in there is going to go spoiled. But we're monitoring every situation, the wind, the fire and everything, the smoke. So right at this point, we just want to focus on getting our people settled in the city.
And what we were also hearing there is that there's concerns about things like food in people's fridges. So even those people who are now out of their homes, of course, there's still a lot of things that you think about when it comes to power and making sure that those homes do maintain power. So a lot of people expressing concerns about what might happen now that power has been lost.
All right. Thank you for this, Hilary.
Thank you.
And in northern Ontario, more than 165 wildfires are still burning, and 81 new fires were confirmed yesterday, largely due to lightning strikes. 5 First Nations are under evacuation orders, and the CBC's Logan Turner is following the developments in Thunder Bay and has the latest.
Well, as we speak, it's my understanding that more than 100 people from Cat Lake First Nation are being flown to Pearson Airport in the Toronto area. That others in the community are preparing for the possibility of evacuating to camps on islands in the nearby lake. And as well, there's a second First Nation that we have heard, North Spirit Lake, is expected to begin a partial evacuation today with more than 100 vulnerable residents headed out of the community, some of them headed towards Sault Ste. Marie. This is, of course, all in addition to more than 3,000 people in 3 different First Nations that have been forced to flee their homes in northwestern Ontario, sent to places right across the province from Cornwall now to the Toronto area as well. A number of communities in northwestern Ontario hosting people, including 1,000 evacuees right here in Thunder Bay. This has all led to growing calls for more support. Even the provincial declaration of an emergency, a state of emergency, one of those people that is calling for Ontario to declare a state of emergency is Alvin Fiddler. He's the Grand Chief of the Anishinaabe Nation, which is a political organization representing all 5 of the First Nations that are currently under evacuation orders.
We've been asking for whether the plan moving forward. We still have not seen a plan from the province. I did reach out to the province yesterday, asking for the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, to come up and visit. You need to be up here. You cannot just rely on reports on paper or phone calls. You need to actually come up and see the impacts and what the needs are.
And so that was Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler of the Anishinaabe Nation calling on Ontario to declare a state of emergency, as well asking Premier Doug Ford to travel to northwestern Ontario to speak to the evacuees, to see the damage. We did hear back from the Premier's office this morning. They would neither confirm that a state of emergency would be declared, nor that the Premier would be visiting the region at any time soon. Of course, the province has declared an emergency area order, which is different. It's not quite as comprehensive as the state of emergency for the entire province, but it has allowed the province to bring in some industry restrictions, travel restrictions in northwestern Ontario.
And Logan, it's interesting because in British Columbia, for example, we heard from the Premier that the wildfire season had a much earlier start than they're used to. What about in Northern Ontario? How does this fire season compare with previous years?
Right. Well, I want to echo something, Arthur, you said earlier, which is that right now about 487,000 hectares are burning in northwestern Ontario. I want to give you a couple other comparisons. Some of that size is about half the size of the Greater Toronto Area. It's slightly smaller than the entire province of PEI. And the fires are growing. Just yesterday, 81 new fires were added. To give you a sense of how bad this year is and compared to previous years, so far this season in northwestern Ontario, there have been 759 fires in the region. The 10-year average to this point of the year is only 472 fires. And of course, the concern from people is that these fires will continue to grow. There's worries about the wind pushing fires into First Nations or into communities. There's minimal rain in the forecast, and there's concern about lightning starting additional fires.
The CBC's Logan Turner in Thunder Bay.